I can't wait for the people to start
Yeah.
picking up EVs, because I think I know. I have a theory how it's going to play out.
Do tell.
So,
Drop it.
Do tell, Roy.
Drop it.
All right,
Drop the bomb.
I'll drop the
Get
bomb.
your money ready. Let's start investing
It's
in
not
this
gonna happen, but I'm just gonna tell you
fantastic
what I think is
idea.
gonna happen, yeah.
I have good
So-
vibes.
You've got people switching to EVs. Now, we've seen from the pandemic, and we know from supply and demand laws of supply and demand, when demand dwindles, the price drops.
Yeah.
And when the demand goes up, the price goes up. I mean, we were searching for webcams just the last few weeks.
Yeah.
Can't get them. And
They're
they're
all
like
sold now?
double, tripled in price. Webcams. The C920. It's a $60 webcam, $190 webcam. It's like $200.
Could that be because of the whole COVID thing? Obviously,
Yeah.
there's a
100%.
restriction. So
100%. Yeah.
it's a temporary.
People are buying,
Thing, right?
people bought all the webcams, and there's
Yeah.
not enough webcams to go around, so the price goes up.
Yep.
Now, when people start buying EVs, the demand for petrol is going to start to drop. Now, we saw from the pandemic, when people are stuck at home and people don't drive, people don't go to the petrol station, what happened to the petrol price? It just fell through
bombed.
the floor.
Yeah,
Which
pretty
was
much.
great for us as consumers.
So, and we don't have, the infrastructure is going to take a while to roll out, and battery technology is getting better. But there's going to be a period, say in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, where there's going to be kind of no real panacea of, wow, this is amazing either way. Like, should I buy an electric car? I mean, for a lot of people it will work, because they're, for whatever they're doing, they'll adopt it, and that's great. But I think there's going to be a lot of people who are used to buying cheap cars and who will benefit from the petrol reduction, and who will just stick with internal combustion engine cars. And for the other manufacturers, I think you brought up, Mercedes, BMW and all that. I heard BMW is sticking to petrol well into the next decade. And they plan to go electric, but they will do electric hybrids. And I think then they're realizing that their charging station networks are going to lag, so they're using the reduction in the cost of petrol and the fact that they are going to build simplified engines that don't really drive the wheels. They charge a battery pack hybrid style. So you've got a vehicle that has, instead of having 2 tons worth of battery or 1.5 tons of battery, it might have a couple of 100 kilos of battery and an internal combustion engine.
Because from what I gather, it's very rare in Europe to find a car that isn't diesel. Because in Europe, I think a lot of their vehicles, even their tiny little hatchbacks, they're all diesel.
Yeah. Diesel is the flavour in Europe. I think a couple of things around that is really, so now in London they have what they call congestion charges. And from my understanding...
to drive into the city, it's like a little toll. They tried to bring that here, didn't they?
Yeah, I didn't like it when I was there.
The interesting thing there is that EVs are exempt, right?
Oh.
Because of the environment.
Exactly, yeah. So they're trying to actually clean up a lot of the air pollution in CBDs, right? So there's kind of a political incentive there, right? And I think, to your point, where BMW are planning to sort of stick with the internal combustion engine.
Specifically,
I think that's
also ethanol, like a biofuel.
Yeah, biofuel.
Which is carbon neutral or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Carbon neutral. Yeah, they'll grow plants and then...
Sugarcane mostly, I think, or corn starch.
Yeah, so it's not adding fossil to the environment.
Yeah.
Does that actually create, if you had, say, a bunch of internal combustion engine cars in the city, does that contribute to the smog still, even if they're on that sort of fuel? Do you know?
I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. Because obviously, if you've got...
Because I think it burns clean.
If it burns clean...
You don't need a catalytic converter.
Yeah.
That's all the crappy stuff that comes with the fossil fuel.
Yeah. Ethanol wouldn't have the same chemical signature as petroleum no matter what you did to it. So I think it's going to be probably cleaner. And if it's not, I mean, it'll be cleaner, but the point is that it'll be healthier as well, I think. You know, you won't have the carbon monoxide coming out. You won't have the carbon
SO4.
residue either.
Yeah.
A couple of things you'll still have is brake dust. Brake dust is actually a huge
Oh, is it?
issue. Yeah. It's a vast number of the particulate matter in the atmosphere, in the samples that they've taken from the CBD, is actually brake dust.
Wow.
Yeah.
know
And
that.
that's really not good for you.
'Cause there's a little snippet here. It says the ethanol gasoline mixtures, they burn cleaner. So therefore, it's the next step. It's maybe not going to electric cars, but it's the next step to, you know, because there's always baby steps with the implementation of technology. Because in an ideal world, we'd all want to have electric cars.
Yeah.
It's the same with the argument of, oh, we should all buy Australian made. We would, but it all usually comes down to price. It really does.
Well, and also market position. That's what do you think? Like if you were BMW, or let's say you were some car manufacturer who had all of this network building internal combustion engines, I mean, are you going to just throw that away? What could you do to save it? Well, we could use hydrogen.
Yeah.
Hydrogen? What should we... we'll just retool a few things, remap some of the ECUs, and all of the stuff that we've built works with hydrogen. Oh, let's back hydrogen.
I think somewhere in Scandinavia, they primarily use hydrogen.
Yes, there was
cars. Somewhere,
one-
is it Scandinavia?
Iceland or something?
I'll Google.
Something like that. They converted it. Even the buses.
I think the issue there really is that,
Is it good for the people, or is it just good for the corporation's bottom line?
well, not only that, but I think they were underplaying the difficulty it would be to pivot to hydrogen from their existing tooling.
Of course.
It's actually significantly more complex than
Oh, you
what
mean-
they
right,
what they thought it probably was. And that's why I think hydrogen cars are few and far between, because the R&D required to make a hydrogen car safe is huge. I mean, Toyota have been looking at this for over 15
here we go.
years.
I found something.
Right.
Australian startup H2X plans new hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. That's news
but that's
to me.
fuel cell.
Yeah, so fuel
That
cell,
means they're going to use
So is that
hydrogen.
that's a hybrid between electric and hydrogen? I'm assuming.
No, it uses hydrogen. It doesn't use hydrogen as in to burn it.
doesn't combust it. Yeah,
It uses hydrogen in a fuel cell to make it as the power source for the electric motors.
Right.
I think.
yeah. So
It's interesting, though.
it is interesting, and I think the future will sort of be the deliberator of the hydrogen versus electric debate. One thing's for sure is that petroleum, as it stands, is probably going to be less popular as time goes on, and with biofuels, I think that's actually a real possibility, especially when you consider that how many legacy internal combustion engine vehicles are there on the planet right now, and we have to do something with all those
Well,
cars.
the ones worth keeping
One's worth keeping, right? But
will be kept.
you've got to do something with all of that.
Yeah.
And I think
Biofuel.
having biofuels is a real alternative. So there is that. But I think, so if you have a look at Tesla as a case model, they haven't done any advertising. All their sales have basically been word of mouth.
Actually, that's I can contest to that because I see ads for Toyota, Holden everywhere. Tesla, not so much. The occasional ad, online article, but it's not actually an advertising. So that's an interesting marketing strategy for them to employ is to not advertise their product.
Yeah. So essentially, what they've done is they made a product that's so good that they're just giving it to
People talk about it anyway.
people.
Like we're talking,
and people talk about it, right? But they're giving it to like Motor Magazine or Drive Tribe or any of these sort of big things, and they're like, drive our car and let us know what you think. And
Yeah.
it's quite ballsy because a lot of those early reviews were actually really negative.
Oh, like Top Gear.
Top Gear, and I think the problem there was
they made it up. It was in the script.
Yeah, it was in the script, and I think Elon sued them and won.
Yeah.
But I think part of the issue there is that you're coming from a motor journalist perspective where they've got all this history with cars, and they expect cars to behave a certain way and have certain sort of features and technology in them, and then you give them something completely new. And again, I go back to
shock to the system.
I go back to the old sort of Motorola and Nokia versus iPhone, where people were. We spoke about this last time, where people were like, "Oh, but how do we actually type?" Oh, you type directly on the screen, and they're like, "But there's no tactile buttons," and they're like,
"There's no buttons.
That'll
no
never
keyboard.
happen."
Simo, can you bring up? It's a YouTube clip. It's probably still on there. It's Steve Ballmer reacts to the iPhone.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is gold.
Have you seen
this
it?
is gold. Yeah.
It's in YouTube.
Oh yeah. Steve Ballmer. He's my favourite, mate. He's jumping up and down.
I'm not familiar with this man.
Just go to YouTube.
No, Steve Ballmer. I'm not familiar.
All right.
Just type Steve Ballmer, STEVE BALLMER iPhone. There it is, the top one.
Let's have a look at this.
Let me ask you about the iPhone and the Zune, if I may. The Zune was getting some traction, then Steve Jobs goes to Macworld and he pulls out this iPhone. What was your first reaction when you saw that?
$500 fully subsidized with a plan? I said, that is the most expensive phone in the world, and it doesn't appeal to business customers because it doesn't have a keyboard, which makes it not a very good email machine. Now, it may sell very well or not. We have our strategy. We've got great Windows mobile devices in the market today. You can get a Motorola Q phone now for $99. It's a very capable machine. It'll do music. It'll do internet. It'll do email. It'll do instant messaging. So I kind of look at that and I say, well, I like our strategy. I like it a lot.
How do you compete with that, though? He sucked out a lot of the spotlight in the last few weeks because of what happened at Macworld, not only with the iPhone, but with the new iPod. I mean, how do you compete with that, with the Zune?
Right now, well, let's take phones first.
Okay.
Right now, we're selling millions and millions and millions of phones a year. Apple is selling 0 phones a year. In 6 months, they'll have the most expensive phone by far ever in the marketplace. And let's see, we're selling millions and millions and millions of phones a year. Apple is selling, we're selling millions and millions and millions of phones a year. Apple is selling 0 phones a year.
You can just switch to
In 6 months, they'll have the most expensive phone by far ever in the marketplace. And let's see, what's the expression? Let's see how the competition goes. In the case of music and entertainment players, Apple absolutely has a preeminent position. We said we want to be in this market. There's a lot of reasons why there's synergy with other things that we're doing. We think we've got some unique innovations, particularly what we're doing with community, with wireless networking. And we came into the market, a market which they're very strong, and we took, I think most estimates would say we took about 20-25% of the high end of the market. We weren't down at some of the lower price points, but for devices $249 and over, we took, let's say about 20% of the market. So I feel like we're in the game, we're driving our innovation hard, and we're not the incumbent. He's the incumbent in this game, but at the end of the day, he's going to have to keep up with an agenda that we're going to drive as well.
And you still feel like you can be very competitive in that space?
Sure, absolutely. If we didn't think there was transformation going on, we wouldn't be playing.
So there you have it. Yeah.
So you can just replace.
We weren't down at some of the lower price points, but for devices.
Interesting.
I mean, you can just replace the word Apple with Tesla, and it's the same thing. Oh, iPhone.
Yeah.
They've come into the market. They're really expensive. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. When the Model S came out, they were
definitely So I think when the first Model S's came out, there's definitely sort of a lot of early adopter anxiety, especially out here because there was no supercharge net. Well, there was a couple of superchargers, but there was no network.
Yeah.
You would be basically left to your own devices. But I think now since the first Model S was here, it's been probably about 10 years. And now the Model 3's hit our shores, and it's kind of a global phenomenon, really. They're selling more cars than they can make.
Yeah,
And there's a backlog that they're
Without
still working
advertising,
through.
that's so
And no
crazy.
advertising, right? Because...
It's exclusive, though, isn't it?
Well, not really. I mean, you think about the total cost of ownership of a vehicle, and that's something people rarely compute in their mind when they go to buy something, right? It's the total
Unless they're
cost of
fleet.
ownership.
Unless they're doing fleet.
Or fleet, right.
yeah.
But then they're writing those vehicles down. It's not something that a consumer would basically...
Yeah, it's not a consumer thing.
No, right. So you look at total cost of ownership, and there are a lot of estimates out there that the total cost of ownership of a Model 3 is similar to a Toyota Camry. And that's because you never need brake pads.
Regenerative braking.
Regenerative braking takes care of that. The cost of electricity is about 1/10 that of
really-
petrol.
really
It's about
cheap.
1/10, okay?
Really cheap.
And you get similar mileage or range if you don't punch it everywhere, okay?
So
The other-
you don't, is what you're telling us.
Well, I'm an enthusiast. I mean, I like fast things, but
Yeah.
which is why I got the performance model. But for the regular driver who's going to get the long range model, the standard range plus model, that's sufficient for their needs, right?
Yeah.
And then the other thing that you've got to realize is total cost of ownership includes a lot of things like obviously you've got your insurance premiums, you've got your fuel, and then you've also got the wear and tear on the vehicle.
The maintenance.
Okay,
yeah.
the maintenance. So there's no oil changes ever on a Tesla.
Oh, wow.
No oil changes ever.
What about the gears, like transmission oil?
There's no gears. There's a single drive, single reduction
like-
gear unit.
It's like your fan at home
Yeah.
that, like we've got a fan upstairs that blows,
Yeah.
in our bedroom.
Yeah.
It's about 15 years old.
Yeah.
We've never had to change the oil in that thing.
Yeah. Just in the drivetrain alone.
It is getting a bit dusty, but it's all right.
So in the drivetrain alone of an electric vehicle, we'll take Tesla as an example. It's
So there's no
it's
form
orders of
lubrication,
magnitude less
or-
complex. So less things can go
There's
wrong
the
with it.
Yes.
starter and the stator and the I can't remember the names of it.
Rotor and the stator.
The rotor and the stator. Thank. He's an electrician.
Yeah.
Yeah. Resident Sparky rotor.
Yeah.
And that's it. Ozzy. It's 3 or 4 moving parts for the.
That's
for
it.
The,
And those drive
the thing.
units are good for 1 million miles.
I really think it's more than that.
It's
but
probably more than
it's-
that.
they just say
but that's
it's
what
a
they're
million.
saying to put a number
That's right.
on
He
it.
wanted to put an unlimited range, and the
And they're like,
insurance
no.
companies. No, I don't
No.
think you should do that. All right,
Unlimited.
A million.
How do you even spell
1
that?
million.
Yeah, 1 million. Like
1 million kilometers. Or is it miles? 1 million
1
miles.
million
probably
miles, right?
miles.
1.6 million kilometers.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff that would go wrong with an internal combustion engine if you were to drive it for 1 million
think-
miles simply won't.
That's one of the key points, the simplicity and longevity. The other thing is, you punch it and you get pushed back in the seat.
Yeah.
I took my kids over the weekend to a park with rides, and I realized that all of the rides are just inertial trickery. They're just rides for inertia.
Yeah.
The swing
Yeah.
gives you a bit of inertia. The merry-go-round, that's inertia. You go on a slippery dip, that's inertia. There was a flying fox. What do you get out of that?
Inertia.
Inertia.
Yeah.
Every ride at the park
Yeah.
was based on getting a little inertial rush.
Yeah.
So Tesla's selling really efficient, really
An
economically sound
experience of a
inertial
sort.
rush.
Yeah. It's like a roller coaster on the
A
on the
roller
road.
coaster, inertial rush.
So it is something to behold. But I mean, the reason I think electric vehicles are going to be successful, and the reason I think Tesla has been so successful, is because it appeals to a broad range of people. Okay, you've got the environmentalists who just like the idea. You've got the
Well, apart from the battery packs, but yes,
but
they're moving to,
But-
cleaner and better and
yeah,
cheaper.
but even with the whole cobalt thing.
Yeah, the cobalt.
It's
thing.
still a lot
didn't want to mention
cleaner than the processing
Petroleum
of
thing.
petroleum.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, because it's zero emissions, inner city living is going to be better from a health perspective for
Yeah.
everyone. And I think the savings from a health perspective, as far as sort of pollution related issues.
And if they get the battery tech, if the battery tech advances to the graphene stage, or whatever the stage is, that they're able to make it so cheaply and so the energy density goes gets really high.
Yeah.
There'll be no stopping it.
Because if it
There'll
can
be no
be
stopping it.
affordable, everyone wants to do right by the environment. Everyone wants to buy the products that help the local farmers, and it's a financial thing, really. We all want to do our part, but it's easier said than done.
Yeah.
The majority of the time.
Yeah. So I think that goes also back to the total cost of ownership, which is something a lot of people don't understand, is that your car over time is costing you a lot more money than an electric vehicle. It's just the upfront cost of an electric vehicle is substantially higher. So you need to think about that, and it's not right for everyone. And some people, they only keep a car for a little while and they sell it. But we haven't even spoken about safety. So Teslas are actually the safest cars on the road. They've blitzed every single safety measure that they've thrown at it, and it's 5-star NCAP here. In the States, it's basically their SUV, the Model X, is the first SUV, I think, to get almost a perfect safety rating, because you can't roll the vehicle because
the battery pack's on the
battery
floor.
pack is so heavy and it's between the axles that the center of gravity is so low you can't roll it.
Yeah.
So there's multiple benefits. Okay, so you've got safety, you've got the environment, you've got performance. One thing that a lot of people don't think about with EVs is convenience, right? The fact that you can start your day every day, if you've got the suitable infrastructure, which a lot of people do, all right? You have a look at suburbia, and the majority of people here in Sydney still live in a house, right?
Yep.
Just because we're such a huge urban sprawl, and I think that's right for most places in the world, except for places like Singapore and Hong Kong and maybe
Tokyo,
super dense places. But then they've got infrastructure as well. But I think the convenience of not ever going to have to fill up, right? And so let's say 0.5% of the time you're on a road trip, okay, and that can be a little bit annoying, right? And hand on my heart, I've done those road trips, and sometimes you're at a supercharger network and the car will say we need 15 minutes here to continue on to our next destination. So you plug it in for 15, and Tesla have done a pretty good job, because the car is essentially a bit of a lounge room. You've got Netflix, you've got YouTube, you've got games, you've got an internet browser all built into the car on the screen. So you can play with those things, and you can watch an episode of something while the car is charging. Also, those superchargers,
I didn't know that.
they're mostly convenient spots, so there's usually a restaurant or a restroom nearby, so you can take a break.
That's
But
smart.
if you want to fill up for 2 minutes with your petrol car and then keep going on the road, then that could be a little bit annoying, right? 2 minutes versus 15 minutes.
The force of habit, you'll be annoying because you're going to be used to doing that
Yeah,
in that way.
exactly.
But then,
Exactly.
but then you're not used to the car gaining more range when you park it at home.
No, exactly.
So
You think about how you use your car and how often you do these road trips, and for some people that's it. That's
the
their
road
job. Okay.
Look, some people are going to use a Tesla in a way that they won't ever think
Reap the
about
benefits,
range.
sort of.
Yeah.
Well, there's that group, but then there's
Because
also
there's
also
a big
a
group of
that-
people who drive four-wheel drives in the city just because everyone else does. They don't need a four-wheel drive. You know
They
what I
don't.
mean?
Yeah. Definitely. So
and there's also a group that will drive a Tesla with that, and they drive it so moderately and sedately that they just by the fact that they drive at home and charge it at home, they won't they won't have any range issues, because they will drive the car will top up more than is required to drive wherever it needs to go.
exactly.
But
Exactly.
it's like with
So
the
they'll never go to the
implementation of any technology, there's always some fails. And seeing as we're talking about Tesla, I just thought we might check this little clip out. We need to touch base on the Cybertruck. We can't talk about Tesla and not talk about the Cybertruck.
Like this beast.
So let's have a look at this clip.
Did you guys see the Jay Leno?
Yes,
How good was that?
that was very good. They made it a bit smaller. They had to make it a bit smaller to fit in car spaces, etc.
Apparently he's not doing that anymore.
What?
Yeah, he's like, no, we're going to make a smaller version, but the first Cybertruck's going to be massive.
Oh wow! Is that the smaller version?
No, there's only one version, and that's the version.
Welcome to the Cybertruck unveil. We created an exoskeleton.
Yeah, the exterior panels and the body actually hold the weight.
Cybertruck.
There's a way to disperse that energy also.
Yeah. So apparently here, where he's hitting it with the sledgehammer,
Let's show the glass.
it jiggled down the glass in the
Yeah,
frame,
yeah.
This is regular
yeah.
glass.
That's
This
what
is
I
like
meant.
normal
and then
glass,
when they hit it
hard
with
glass.
the ball
I'll
bearing,
show you what
It
happens.
wasn't braced at the time.
it wasn't braced, so it smashed.
Makes sense.
Now I'll show you Tesla armor glass. Yeah.
I like these cyberpunk extras. Where'd they get those guys from?
Yeah, it's still there. There we go. Franz, could you try to break this glass, please?
I haven't actually seen the clip, so this will be interesting.
And this is Franz.
France,
Yeah.
he does smash it.
Yeah. Oh my fucking god. Well, maybe
like-
that was a little too hard.
He's like, should we do the next one? And he goes, yeah, sure, why not?
Sorry?
I don't think they break the rear. Do they break the rear?
Side.
The rear one breaks as well, yeah.
Does it?
Yeah.
Sure.
Wow, so that's a little bit of a fail of technology there, but I mean that happens. It's
But you need balls to,
Yeah.
put yourself out there.
Well, I think the thing is
Yeah.
backstage they've done it to that
yeah, that's
very
right.
truck.
That earlier
a
on
number
they
of
did
times,
that,
yeah.
but they didn't do the sledgehammer thing. Then the
Then the
real-
thing, yeah.
then the thing one after the other.
Yeah.
wow.
So
But it's yeah, that's going to be an interesting thing to see cruising around the streets. at
It's
some
not
point.
exactly the most attractive car, but if it's functional and cheap and
I don't even know if it's going to be functional. It is cheap, apparently. It's going to be
30.
Yeah, like
really,
yeah.
would you get one, Rod?
No,
No,
but I'm not going to get a new car for a while. I don't think.
it's not much of a people mover, but it does make a statement.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Yeah, but have you guys heard of Rivian?
Yes.
Rivian. No, I'm not familiar.
It's a
So they're
pickup
the
truck.
SUV manufacturers who are making electric vehicles. So they only make electric vehicles, and they're only making SUV electric vehicles.
Weren't they making a pickup utility?
Yeah, so they've got two models. I think they've got the RT1,
There it is. R1T.
the R1T, and the R1S. So one of them is like the truck, which has got a pickup ute thing, and the other one is the S, which is more of a saloon, and it's got kind of your standard sort of station wagon
Yeah.
back to it. But these cars are going to be amazing. They actually do car-to-car charging,
Yep.
and they've got something called tank turn. So if you're on a dirt road and you're stuck on a narrow dirt road,
Yep.
you can activate tank turn, and when you turn the wheel, because it's
Back.
got independent motors in each wheel, the thing turns on a dime.
Wow.
So the left side wheels have forward traction, the right side wheels have rear traction, and the whole vehicle spins about its center of mass,
Yep.
which just is just.
It's a strange looking
I mean, it's insane.
pickup. It's
That's
interesting.
wonderful.
Yeah,
Oh, it's got a little dog
Comes with a dog.
chair.
comes with a dog.
That's an interesting
That would be
compartment.
amazing if it came with a dog.
Yeah,
An electric dog.
yeah, they're pretty cool vehicles, man. So they got this thing where the whole tent comes out. See, that's got a kitchen that pulls out.
What?
And the whole thing's running off the battery. Yeah, so the kitchen is conduct. What do they call it?
Yeah.
Convection.
Conduct-
Yeah,
induction?
convection.
Yeah.
And it Yeah.
Wow. Does it solar charge or?
No, it doesn't solar charge. I don't think panels are efficient enough to actually have.
Oh, panels are becoming very efficient recently.
They are recently,
but
yeah.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. Yeah.
It's 141, 142.
Let's wrap it.
Nice.
Wrap it up,
Well, it's
thank
very interesting discussing about
nice.
cars.
Yeah, can't wait to take you guys for a spin once I get
it
it
back.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
So what happened again?
I hit a massive pothole, and because I got the performance tires, they've only got a 35mm sidewall, and it
35, yeah.
ripped. But it was a massive pothole, like it was a lake. It was a couple of Mondays, probably about 3 Mondays ago. We had torrential downpour here, and
Wow.
I
what-
went through this thing, and it just
So what was the damage? It burst the two
yeah.
tires.
So it burst both tires on the right hand side, damaged the rims on the left hand side because the pothole was actually the width of the lane. And then in the middle of the pothole was one of these, I think it's either a hydro main or a gas main. You know, these ones that stick out in the middle of the road. And usually they're flat with the road, but because the bitumen had eroded kind of on both sides
What
of
did it
it,
sound
as I
like?
went in there, it scraped the bottom panel on the. It sounded bad,
Wow.
dude. It sounded really bad. So
Yeah,
I'm
the
getting that
battery packs-
repaired, and
the
So
battery
is that
packs are
something to
damaged?
think about?
the battery pack's not damaged. It's actually got a really strong
Shield.
shield on there to prevent sort of damage. But they have to replace part of the panel on the underside. They have to get 4 new rims, 4 new tires, and they also don't know if the suspension's been damaged. So
But is that something to think about? Like, if you take pretty much any car to any mechanic,
Yeah.
no worries.
Yeah.
But taking, a Tesla to your local mechanic, there's probably the chance they could go, ooh, I don't know how to.
Yeah, you
work
don't
on
take
those.
it to
Is
your
there-
local
okay,
mechanic.
They have approved.
They have approved repairers
right.
that deal solely, well, not solely, but some of them
Primarily.
deal primarily with Teslas, yeah. And they're really good. Shout out to my boys at Chatswood Prestige.
Oh, look out!
There we
Shameless
go.
plug, ladies and gentlemen.
There we
Shameless
go.
plug.
Yeah,
Why
but
not? Why not?
It's pretty good. Yeah, so no complaints.
Awesome. Well, Eddie,
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks for your time yet again.
Yeah, no worries at all. Happy to come chat. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Yeah.